Hi, I'm Leanne Ely. I'm a nutritionist, a New York Times best-selling author, and some people even say I'm a life coach. I started the Daily Dish Show to share my story, my truth, and my journey to vibrancy, and to inspire others to do the same. Because it's all about grit, perseverance, and finding a way despite the odds. It's about embracing the whole woman, not just the parts that are easy to love, and feeding her heart, mind, body, and soul. But I found that this isn't just my story, it's your story too. It's go time. This is the Daily Dish. Hello, lovelies! Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are in my back deck, which is being transformed into an extension of our living room. As you can tell, you can see wallboard and you can see where what used to be a window over here. See that right there? And that's my Christmas tree too. Yay! Alice, Jocelyn, and Jeanette all here in the house. Hello, good afternoon. Maybe this is just a little bit too much. I don't know. You can see into my kitchen. There you go. There's the kitchen. Yeah, there it is. So I had a dinner party here yesterday, and I had my lovely board, the pickleball board was here. Hi, Catherine. Hi, Autumn. They were here and for dinner. And so I set this all up. If you are on my Facebook page, you can go see that, my personal Facebook page. You can see how I had it all set up. But it was so lovely to have people over and enjoy this whole area. And I'll kind of give you a little bit of a tour. But right now we have the hot wood burning stove going, and it's just nice and warm and toasty. And it's, it's fun. I say it's fun because Mark's doing all the work. So there it is. It's so much fun. I've got all my Christmas stuff out, and it just feels so homey and good. I'm excited about it. Anyway. So did you get the email this morning? We have 2 supplements that we are blitzing out the door. And I mean, in a big way. If you buy a Mindful mug, we're going to give you a supplement of your choice, either drop, which helps to regulate your blood sugar and bring it down, or glycozyme, which helps with digestion. You can buy 2 Mindful mugs and get one of each if you want to. I mention this because this is a $52 value, you guys. Free. You'll get the mug. You're going to pay retail for the mug. You get the mug, and then you're also going to get these fantastic 2 supplements that I highly recommend, especially during the holidays. So check it out. You can find it at savingdinner.com/mindful. Now, we've mentioned in our email that we are moving to a bigger facility. We are. And so we're trying to get everything out the door so that we don't have to have that all get moved over and pay for the shipping over to the bigger facility. So help us out, will you? And get yourself a gift that you'll really appreciate. So that's what I have for you today. It's a big, big deal. Meanwhile, today we're going to be talking about radical acceptance. Okay. And today's, the quote of the week fits like a T. And I told you, I never, preview what the quote of the week is. It's quote of the week roulette, right? And Jenny just puts them out and that's it. And we're done with that. So the quote of the week is, let me pull it up here really quick. Nothing ever goes away until it has taught us what we need to know. Now, this is a Pema Chodron quote. And of course, she's written a bunch of different books and such. And she's incredible. And if you've never read any of her stuff, I say read it because it'll enlighten you. But here's the thing that I know about this is that sometimes what the lesson is just simply embracing radical acceptance. I'm going to talk about that today because that is something, especially during the holidays, we have to come to the table with this notion and idea and shall we say, acceptance of radical acceptance. So let's talk about that, unpack it a little bit, and I hope you find it helpful. For me, it was really helpful just writing this because, every single person that I know has got something that they need to radically accept, whether it's a health issue, whether it's a family thing or a relationship thing, whatever it is. Nobody gets out of this earth without having something that is uncomfortable and something that they have to accept. It's just true. And in our journeys, all of us that have them, we encounter situations that we that are far from anything that we want or desire in our lives. Far from anything. And the thing is, instinctually, we're going to do the thing that we want to do. We're going to resist it. We're going to try to control it, right? Or the big one is, which is, I think, is the hardest one, and it mentally breaks us down. And that is sit there and wish it were somehow different. You know? If you if you've been in that situation before, and I know, and I've been there too, and I've done this, and it will tear you apart inside, sitting there and wishing, because wishing does nothing. Okay, so I want to try to save you from that by giving you some other ideas of things that you can do. So, but I also want to point out that radical acceptance is often misunderstood. It's often misunderstood as something that you just put up or shut up. It's often misunderstood as something as kind of a passive resignation or pretending to be okay with things that just aren't okay, right? Because when we find ourselves in this distressing situation with whatever this thing is that we have to accept, then we are trying to somehow cope. And we don't pull out the radical acceptance. We pull out mechanisms that we've used probably our whole lives. Everything's okay, put on a happy face, or just resigning ourselves to it and shutting up and shutting down. And what does that do for us, right? It gives us always the very same thing that we've always had. And this is why it's critical that we understand a little bit about radical acceptance and what it is and what it isn't. Okay? So here's what I want you to take a look at, because as far as I know, I don't know of anybody that this has ever happened. You can't wish it away and hope that it's going to magically disappear, or that we're suddenly going to feel better about it. That usually doesn't happen, at least in my world, at least in the people that I've spoken to about it. But what radical acceptance really is a profound acknowledgement of reality. This is what it is. This is that disease. This is this relationship. This is the way he or she is, and that's not going to change. And when we do this, and we do it without the layers of judgment that come with it, right? That's one of the number one things. Then we start understanding that the judgment doesn't need to be there. The control doesn't need to be there, nor does the wishful thinking. It's just radical acceptance, period, end of story. And it's profound, because it is giving yourself that permission, even to grieve a relationship or a condition or whatever it is, and giving yourself an opportunity to see things very clearly for what they are, and to be able to love anyway, to be able to be empathetic anyway, to be able to button your lip when you need to, and to be able to love yourself up even though it's not the way you planned. Nobody plans to have something happen in their lives that requires radical acceptance ever. No one. But most of us in this lifetime, I don't know, maybe there is someone who's managed to escape that, find ourselves in this place of having to deal with that, right? So, but I want you to understand too, that the confusion comes to, we sometimes confuse radical acceptance with resignation. and giving up. And we think that to accept a challenging situation, we have to resign ourselves to it. And that's not necessarily the case at all. It's far from resignation. Hey there, Jane. I'm glad you're here. It's you know what this is though, and I think this is kind of like the thing that just made my eyes pop open. It's recognizing that some aspects of our lives are beyond our control. That is 100% the truth. Always. How so and so is going to act, beyond your control. What's going on sometimes in your body, what's going on, and that is suddenly this thing that your doctor's giving you this, lecture about, or grave warning about, or scary situation about, beyond your control, at least at that point, right? And when we look at this and we relinquish that control and we let go of that and the judgment that we oftentimes put with it, then that's when we start to step into what radical acceptance is all about. And listen, our human nature is naturally going to go toward that place of trying to control the environment, trying to control. I mean, there are things in our lives. Yes, there are things in our lives that we can control, but sometimes some of the things that we can't control, that are beyond our abilities, are neither good nor bad, fair or unfair, or whatever. At least if we are allowing radical acceptance to play into it, because that's one of the many layers of judgments. We start saying, well, this is unfair. Well, this is good. This is bad. She's this, he's that, all of it. And when we do that, radical acceptance is saying, shh, 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 quiet, just a minute here. And saying, accept things as they are, not as they should be, and allow that peace to pass all understanding. Peace that passes all understanding. You've heard this before in the biblical context, I'm sure, but that's what this is. That's what this is. When we accept things as they are and not as we think that they should be, we're proclaiming peace in our lives. Does that resonate with you? It just hit me like a ton of bricks. And that's what I wanted to bring into this today and talk about, because every single person that I know of has something that requires radical acceptance. And it's a tough road to hoe. And it requires mindfulness. It requires every inch of our being. It requires us to dig deep. It doesn't just come easily. It is worked for a little bit. It really is. So this is, there's pain involved too, right? This is not without pain. There's pain because we have to fight the negative emotions that probably come with that, and especially with the acceptance and all of it. And so we have to look at that, the struggle against negative emotions creating more suffering, because that's also a possibility. It's like being caught in quicksand. Remember all the TV shows? Remember they used to have always somebody got caught in quicksand? It was always a quicksand thing. Well, the more you struggle in quicksand, the more you sink. And that's the same thing with all these negative emotions, because radical acceptance, get this, I bolded this because I thought this was so important. Radical acceptance teaches us that negative emotions are part of the human experience. Doesn't mean you have to like it. It just means we have to accept it. And that's part of radical acceptance, because the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it is part of it. So instead of fighting these feelings, by the way, instead of fighting them, we acknowledge and accept them. And that doesn't mean that your emotions disappear, by the way, right? It just means you've made peace with them. It just means that you've made peace with them. And our relationship with these emotions then shift and change. Again, radical acceptance to me, the whole definition is granting yourself personal peace. Regardless. Now we still have a situation, like maybe it's a relationship that we want fixed or whatever, or that we want changed or shifted or whatever. We all have that deep-seated desire and wanting something different, of course. But residing, you're living on um, this whole notion, this whole idea of it has to change or the wishful thinking or whatever is where a lot of our energy goes. And my thought is to shift it over into this acceptance and then make peace with these emotions. They're still not going to be, they're not going to turn into princes. Those frogs aren't going to turn into princes at all. But we just acknowledge that they're there. It's like how we do with fear. Fear never 100% can be eradicated from your life. Instead, we learn how to sit with fear and acknowledge it and say, you might be there, but you're not going to stop me. Do you hear what I'm saying? That's what radical acceptance is all about. So how do we practice it? Well, obviously, mindfulness is of the utmost, always of the utmost. If we don't have mindfulness in our lives, we can't walk into these places where the requirement to have peace means giving something up. So when we are going into radical acceptance, we are giving up control, and we're giving up the fact that we need to have these, happy thoughts all the time, right? Jeanette's right. She says we're always told to be positive, but we want to be positive, of course, but there are places in our lives where it's not about positivity, but instead is about radical acceptance. So if we understand this and we understand that radical acceptance is a transformative tool to our own transformative walk, to our own vibrancy, we can set it aside. We don't have to live, and everything in our lives doesn't have to be colored by that lens of radical acceptance. Maybe it does if it's like a disease that's threatening you, that you have to like live that way. Sure. But even so, we can still find joy outside of the feelings that are distressing, outside of all this other stuff. There's still joy there. It doesn't mean that it has obliterated all the joy in your life. Does that make sense? So if we observe through mindfulness our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, and if we cannot be judgmental about ourselves because we have them and just allow for them and the processing of them. Remember, we've talked before how emotions are sort of waves that come into your lives, and there's an apex to a wave, and then it crashes and comes ashore, but it always does come ashore, doesn't it? It always comes ashore. Oh, joy, Autumn, that's so good. She says joy in the chaos. There is joy in the chaos. There can be when you choose peace, and radical acceptance is choosing peace. So remember, we can't be about the outcome, but we have to be about the limited amount that we can do. Our choices on how to respond and how to act. It's limited. And that's what radical acceptance teaches us. But the peace that comes from radical acceptance is greater than the sum total of all of it. Because that's when we're just laying our gift, our gifts on the altar. That's where we're just saying it's, giving it up. It's yours, to God. Radical acceptance allows us to do that and still maintain a life of vibrancy. That's the thing that I really want to get through. And I will also say, it's not an easy path to choose, this radical acceptance stuff. But during the holidays, during different times of our lives, wherever it is that we are, it's one that we don't necessarily choose, but how we react to it and how we go about living our lives with it is what this is about and is what we're talking about. Being at war with what reality is and shifting and pretending and downgrading and all of that stuff will never get us the vibrancy that we want. You cannot pretend your way to vibrancy. And yet when things are going on in our lives, we can't either, walk away and just say, okay, we're just going to give up, because that's not what this is. We can't. There's still grief that needs to be processed. right? There's still heartbreak. There's still scary moments. There's still all these things that are going to come up. They bubble up to the surface. That's what these waves do. Then we deal with them, and we don't have to be constantly at war with the reality of what it is anymore when we choose peace, when we choose radical acceptance, because this is the grace that allows us to get through. And when we give it up and put it on the altar, then we can receive that gift of radical acceptance. Can't wait. And I hope this was helpful, because what I've found, in my own life is when I do that and just have that little bit. And I had a situation happen this weekend where it was just this little nugget that gave me this radical acceptance. And I thought, that's enough. Now, I want more than a nugget. I want the full 12 pack of nuggets or whatever. I want them all. But I'll accept the nugget. It's enough because it gives me peace. That's what radical acceptance does. And that's all I have for you today. So I have to say to everyone, the happiest of holidays for those of you who celebrate Christmas and Hanukkah and, all the things. I would just say to you, God bless you all. And I really appreciate every single one of you as we go through this holiday season. It can be rough for some people. It can be really heartbreaking. But radical acceptance will be your olive branch of peace if you accept that. Okay? Love you all. Thank you so much. By the way, we have the holiday cheers plan. You can find that at savingdinner.com/cheers, CHEERZ, because we're so fun with the spelling. And all of our announcements, including today's really pithy quote, you can find at savingdinner.com/announcements. I appreciate you all. And I really, I hope you have good holiday planning, getting everything together and what have you. And I'll see you next Tuesday. Meanwhile, if you need me, you can always reach out to support@savingdinner.com. I answer all my emails. Peace be with you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining me today. You can find me on TikTok for daily tips to help support your most vibrant life. And remember, you are the author of your own story. Until next time.